Welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I wanted to read the bio for Yelena, and she is going to be our next guest on the podcast. And so, Yelena is the RN, MSN, OCN Caritas coach. She is a dedicated nursing professional development specialist at Stanford Healthcare, born in Kazakhstan. I probably didn't pronounce that right. I apologize. Yelena pursued her nursing dream, graduating with highest honors from City College of San Francisco in 2014 and later earning her BSN with honors from San Francisco State University. She holds a master's degree in nursing concentrated in executive leadership. Yelena's extensive experience in inpatient oncology, hematology departments at SHS spans 6 years, progressing from CN1 to CN4. She has excelled in various roles, including assistant patient care manager, preceptor, charge nurse, equity and diversity advocate, wellness champion, and chemotherapy and central line super user. As a faculty of the Watson Caring Science Institute, Yelena is passionate about fostering employee well being, professional development, and exceptional nursing care. Her commitment to compassionate care and leadership inspires others to deliver high quality patient care. Welcome to the show. Greetings and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and I am excited today. I have a special guest, and her name is Yelena, and I hope I pronounced that right. Did I?
Yes, you do.
Yay, good. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here, and I'm very grateful that you have invited me.
Yes, and I am so happy that you're here as well. Um, I want to start off by just doing a little bit of context. And thank you for watching the podcast because I have seen you engage with me
Mhm.
on my podcast. This particular week, I really wanted to unpack caring science because caring science has been very instrumental in my life, in my profession, really just period. Because in 2010, I kind of hit this rough spot of burnout and frustration. And, I was trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe I'm done with nursing. Maybe it's time for me to step in and do something different. And so then my organization brought in Caring Science, and that's where I found out about the wonderful work of Dr. Jane Watson. And there was a light that went on the inside of me that reignited my passion for my why.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm such an advocate for Caring Science. And I have saw it transform self and systems on multiple people and multiple levels. So I know that it's the secret sauce and it
Yeah.
definitely works. So I wanted to highlight some of you trailblazers because I have been looking on LinkedIn in particular, and you are actively engaged in caring science. So, can you first of all just tell us who you are?
Yeah.
And then I want you to tell us a little bit about how it all started for you with caring science.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think for many of us, we are introduced to caring sciences through that hardship, through that suffering, through that empathy fatigue that we experience as healthcare professionals. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that organizations do bring the Korean sciences very actively into the practice right now. And that's what my organization does. And I am a nurse and professional development specialist here at Stanford Healthcare, and we actively engage with caring sciences. We actively infuse it into all of the educational materials, all of the competencies that we create here in our organization. I didn't wasn't always a nurse and professional development specialist. That's very long name. I started as a new graduate nurse here at Stanford as well. And that is when I discovered career sciences. I truly believe that every single nurse, when we, any healthcare professional, when we engage into that profession, we start practicing as a career science practitioners. We just don't know it, right? And career
Right.
sciences give us the words and the language how to describe and advocate for what we do. So here I was, a new graduate nurse caring for a patient that will never leave my heart. And caring sciences calls it the transpersonal moments with patients, families. It could be with your coworkers, your family, and even with yourself. But that particular moment was with my patient. She was affected by her skin cancer and undergoing extensive wound dressing. And she was in excruciating pain. That's so much pain that she was experiencing. No human being should ever be a subject to that. We were giving her all the medication known to the world to relieve her pain, and it was giving very minimal to zero relief to her pain. I remember that moment looking at her daughter sitting across the room and crying and truly like asking for her mother's um, suffering to be relieved. She was about 15 years old. Um, I was, the patient was biting on a rolled up towel right before I was about to take off another dressing from her skin. She was holding on to my hand until the point I was having the marks on my wrist left from her grip, right? And she looked up at me with the eyes full of suffering and full of pain and yet full of gratitude. And I was looking at her with, I was trying to show all the, with all my being, the love and compassion and kindness that I can give her in that moment to comfort her. And at that moment, I knew that she will be forever part of my heart and I will be forever part of hers. That she will be part of my story and I will be part of her story. And that is, takes us back exactly what Caring Sciences talks about is that we become part of stories of our coworkers, patients, and our family members. Right, all of those interactions, we are sharing those energies to create the moments, the authentic moments with each other. I very quickly learned that as a new graduate nurse, that that was not an extraordinary moment in my practice. That was not a singular event that will just elevate my practice or it will be part of my heart. I very quickly learned it's what I do as a nurse every single day. I witness suffering, I take part in that suffering. And what do we do as human beings? Very natural thing. Doesn't make us bad people, right? We build a wall. Our primitive brain thinks, I'm going to protect you. Our primitive brain thinks, you know what? Doesn't feel good. I'm going to help you. I'm going to protect you. So, and we develop that empathy fatigue. And I want to highlight here, it's not the compassion fatigue we're all experiencing, it's the empathy fatigue. And the answer is the compassion. And the answer is the connection. Because when we turn away trying to protect our heart, we actually, what we are doing, we're violating our higher consciousness, our
Yes.
soul. We are making it, the only way out is through, because when we turn away trying to protect ourselves, we are hurting ourselves much deeper on a moral ethical level. So what does Caring Sciences did for me is gave me the tools, the theory, the philosophy of it, and most importantly the practices to keep on building on, to in being able to engage into compassion, to engage into connection with the patient when it's so painful. I immersed myself in lots of literature. I started attending conferences and Jean Watson talks. Then I went into the Caritas Coach program, which was transformational. And now I'm the faculty for Caring Science Institute. Yes, thank you. And also, we do the certificate program here at Stanford, which is a Caritas nurse, Caritas partner, trying to truly advocate for this work and share that work to all the specialties in healthcare, not just nursing, and at the same time elevate that work so people can take advantage of the practices and theories of caring sciences. long answer, but I think it
No,
was.
that was so beautiful. That was, there were so many golden nuggets in there. And I love how you talked about, because it reminds me of that relationship that's biogenic, meaning it's life giving and life receiving. And that moment with that patient, that was, oh my God, that was one of my moments too. I wanted to share a story, that
Yes.
it's a patient story that it's happened, it's been at least 8 years now, but it's just like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's really what pulled me into caring science. We had the information, we had the first session, and then I knew that the fire was reignited. And then I work in labor and delivery, so we were, I think I was night shift at the time, yes. And it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. Now normally I go in with my regular clothes on because I'm in management.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular night, I felt the field. It felt really chaotic. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just put on my scrubs that night
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt like as soon as I hit the floor, I could just feel the intensity. And so, I'm going throughout. And then all of a sudden at 4 a.m., I hear code C, labor and delivery. Code C, labor and delivery, which means that one of our babies were in trouble and moms were in trouble. And of course, we have within 10 minutes to get the baby safe and out. And so everybody's getting in place. I ran into the OR and I'm like making sure all of my players are in place and we're moving very swiftly. And before I knew it, boom, the baby's out. And I happen to be the one the closest. And so I put baby on the table, absolutely floppy, no life whatsoever. We began to start resuscitating. I was like, well, no big deal. NICU, I've been doing this for years. We always save babies. And I mean, I'm telling you, Yelena, 1 minute, no heart rate, no breathing, 2 minutes, up to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, no heart rate, no breathing, 15 minutes, nothing. And then the physician said, Charlene, stop. Let's stop at 17 minutes. And I will never, ever forget that moment because that's when he said, okay, let's just start extubating. Now, mom is unconscious. She has no clue that we lost her baby at that particular time. And then I remember grabbing the baby's hand. It was frozen like an ice block. That's what it felt like to me. And I said, oh God, grant this family a miracle. And then I just kind of moved out of the way. I start wrapping him up. And within about 30 seconds, the doctor was like, I got to listen one more time. And he listened. He looked at me. He said, Charlene, there's a heart rate.
Oh my
And I
God.
grabbed the baby and I ran to the nursery because it was right next door. And we began to start resuscitating again. And his heart rate went up. We reintubated him. I mean, he was very, very sick. And 3 days later, sis, the mother sent a picture, and he had no tubes whatsoever
Oh my
on
God.
him at all. He had
What a
one little tube
miracle.
on the. It was such a miracle. And you know what? Caritas process number
10.
10,
Yeah.
be open for miracles. So for me as a practitioner, in that moment, in that OR, it felt like you can hear a pin drop. That's how
Yeah.
silent it was when it was called. And everybody, no matter what religion, what race you, whatever it was you were, our whole energy was like, we have to pray for this family in our own little way, whatever we
Yeah.
decided to do. And I know that I probably would not have done what I did unless I was given the language of Caritas process number 10 to be open for miracles.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. We literally had a miracle. And I will never forget that moment because it was such a journey that we had that right afterwards, the mother, we rushed them out and they were so frustrated, so upset, of course. But guess what? They invited us back to a 1 year old celebration,
Oh, how
to his party
beautiful.
at their farm, and it was phenomenal. He has no issues whatsoever, just an absolute miracle. And I just think that was the thing, the fire that I needed to be able to now impart this into other people because the impact was so great, and that moment still is living on. I mean, the pediatrician is the godfather, and I mean we're just so connected and still in the midst of it all. So thank you so much for sharing that story. It's those kind of stories
Yeah.
that really just we hold one another in the suffering. I love how you said that.
Mm,
You sat with her in her suffering, caring for her, and you won't ever forget that. So that was just so heartfelt. Thank you for sharing that. Now, on the heels of that, though,
mm,
Yelena, that's a lot of you being released to other people.
yes.
How do you care for yourself in the midst of putting out energy like that to pour into another person suffering?
Yes. Thank you for that question. I want to just quickly comment on the beautiful story that you shared as well, and what Jean Watson talks about, saying that maybe this is the moment where we were brought to this world, right? Maybe that
Yes.
was the moment you meant to be there to make that prayer when you held the hand, right, of the baby and just asking for the miracle, and here it was. What a beautiful testament to what nurses do and what Career Sciences truly advocates for as well. And
Yeah.
well, how do we care for ourselves when we witness suffering again and again? When
Yes.
we do relive that again and again with other people, right? What let's dive into what actually the theory talks about, right? The beautiful thing about Jean Watson Career Science theory that it's not just the philosophical aspect of it, right? There is also practices. So we cannot, we've heard that so many times, well, we cannot give from the empty cup. Well, how do we care for ourselves when we are so busy? When everything is thrown at us at the same time, how do we find the time, right? Um, well, we are the nurses, we have 150 tasks on our to do list, and definitely breathing is not one of them. So, truly, caring sciences is not something to do, but something to be. You're not
Yes.
going to be that today or tomorrow after watching this podcast or reading a book or even attending Caritas coach program. You're just not going to move into that right away. It's going to take time and years and practice and kind of understanding and pondering upon um, the ideas, suggestions, and actually engaging into practices. So, Caring Sciences has practices and micro practices. Well, let's talk on a micro practices level. Whenever we are slowing down and taking a pause, we actually allowing for the energy to like to calibrate again, right?
Yes.
Well, how does that pause looks like on a very busy inpatient floor, right? Let's say. Well, that pause simply looks like when you're washing your hands, you're taking the note of the temperature of the water. You're taking a deep breath. The water, washing hands becomes your touchstone, and touchstone is a reminder in your environment to engage in self care. When you're taking those deep breaths and you're engaging in mindfulness in that simple moment when you're washing your hands, you are calming down your system. You're calming down your system and you're recalibrating your energy as well, right? It could be when you're driving the car and again you're hitting the light and you're already late and you're already in a hurry. The red light is your touchstone to take a deep breath. You're taking a deep breath, you're calming down your body. Well, guess what? Again, coming back to the floor and you're counting all the morphine pills, trying to give it to the patient. You're actually paying attention at the type of the wrapping, at the color of the pill, and that's the moment of mindfulness. So there is those micro practices that we infusing throughout the day, into creating um, building that foundation for being able to give to others, right? Because we cannot, very often people say to me, well, I don't have time, right? Well, I really
Yes.
don't have time. It doesn't take a lot of time when you clocking in and that's your moment. Take a deep breath in, check in with yourself. How much do I have to give today? And that would be my 100% for today, even though that's 20%. It doesn't take much time to change your password to something inspirational, like you can do hard things. Today will be a good day is your next password whenever the system asks you for a password change, right? Those like external reminders are very small micro practices that we start with. You cannot start with changing the world. You have to
Yes.
start with change it, like allowing yourself in, to engage into self love, self acceptance, and self care. And that's when you build up that foundation, then you can extend it to other people.
So beautiful. And it is just those little bitty pauses that help us so much. Yelena, there's probably someone watching, and especially since it's Nursing Week,
Yeah.
I would love for you to speak to someone that's feeling a little stuck and a little burnt out.
Mhm.
They're just feeling like they've lost some of the passion that they once had. What would you say to that type of healthcare professional or nurse, especially since it's Nurses Week?
Yeah. I think I would start with saying that you're not alone in that. There is so many of us, and this is the beauty of our common humanity. The common humanity is an understanding that we are not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. Whatever mistake that haunting you, whatever pain and suffering that haunting you, this is not a unique circumstance. We are here together as a humanity. We will
Yes.
never be perfect, and there is a sense of freedom comes when we accept good and bad. And that's the caritas process number 5, right? To be able to forgive self. Before we can forgive self, we cannot forgive other. Because before we can accept good and bad, we cannot accept in ourselves. We cannot accept that in other human being. When we see that humanity in ourselves, that yes, just go right through it. That's what I would say, right? The only way out is through that feeling. Don't push it back, don't push it on the side, sit in it. And there is actually a beautiful caritas practice where we ask a person to sit for 5 minutes in that suffering. In whatever it is emergent, just sit in it. Just put away the phone, um, close the door, turn off the all the distractions that are around you, and just sit in it, and the answer will definitely come. Also, what I would say that how to build up from that is to create that space for the pause, because between our whatever happening in our life and our reaction, there is a beautiful space, and that space
Yes.
is a pause. But it only becomes available when it becomes available, because we are tired, when we are super upset, when we haven't slept. Well, we are more likely to just jump into reaction. That pause is just not available, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
If we care for ourselves, that pause becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it becomes more powerful, and that's where we can rest all of our. It becomes not a reaction, but it becomes a response, right? So, two things that I would say: just go right through it, sit with whatever is on your heart right now, and you're if you are feeling burned out. And the second thing, increase that pause with self-care, with the most simple self-care activities. Do not make a plan. Eat right, exercise every single day, hour and a half, and engage in a gratitude for half an hour. Don't do that to yourself. Start with a
Yes.
very small thing to increase that space where you can actually build up the practices for self-care, so you can go into responding to life versus reacting to everything.
Wow, such a rich, rich answer, Yelena. It has truly been an honor just having you on here. I'm loving listening to you. The tone of your voice is super amazing. I
Thank
love it.
you.
I love the tone of your voice. And so, as we continue on, I'm curious. what do you see as far as caring science, especially in the times that we're living in,
Mm-hmm.
especially post pandemic?
Yeah.
Where do you see us heading in caring science in the future?
I truly think that people are waking up. I really, really believe that nurses are gaining that power, that internal power to advocate for what nursing truly is. I truly believe that the healthcare waking up as a whole, because we see more and more institutions to becoming affiliates of nurse of Dr. Watson Care and Sciences theory and philosophy. We see more and more practitioners going into the program, right, and transforming the program in their own ways and bringing that back to their teams and back um, to their organizations as well. I believe that eventually it will be part of most of the institutions, at least here in United States, especially in the magnet organizations. I also believe that you can see that almost all of the conferences for the last year were talking in some form and shape about wellness, how to
Yes.
build resilience, how to build well-being, how to I don't like to the word of like fighting compassion fatigue, right? Because there is just so much wrong with all of those combinations. However, this is what we are moving towards. The hospitals realizing that investing in the nurses' wellness is something that brings goodness to organizations, to patients, and then to retention, right? This is all the
Yes.
trigger words that we are all care about. So I definitely see this work flourish and grow in different capacities. I also see and can see it in the future that different versions of that work emerging as well, right? So I'm very excited for the future for the caring sciences in healthcare, particularly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering, what about for those that are non-nurses? What do you
Mhm.
see happening with them?
Yes, so we see more and more healthcare professionals, not necessarily in nursing, entering Caritas coach programs. Particularly in Stanford Healthcare, we created that certificate program, which is a Caritas partner program. So we
Yes.
did not isolate it to nurses only. We have expanded it to everyone who is employed with our organization can attend and learn. The focus of the program is how to infuse those practices into your personal like how to build those practices to build your personal wellness. And then when you're more interested in about caring sciences, you go into Caritas Coach, and that is when you're learning, well, how do I expand that work into my team, organization, etc. We always start with ourselves. I really think that it's not unique to nurses to experience all the pain and compassion and love. Reflecting on being patient myself when I was giving birth to my babies, but also when I was going through the surgery, I actually connected the most with the EVS staff, right? With those people who came and cleaned my room, and we just had the most deep and profound and loving conversations with them, right?
Yes.
So I think compassion is not unique to nursing, right? Compassion is actually something that we do as a every single person in healthcare when we come into that room in any capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. In our program, I've been seeing a lot of we've integrated social services into it, and our PCTs, and
Hmm.
it's been so beautiful to really just show that this is really about humanity. I
Yes,
mean, it's about us taking care of one another.
yes.
Being more authentically present. So wow, such a amazing conversation. So before we end, I always ask my guest if they can give us, like, if it was Yelena's top three. So what would Yelena's top three be? It could be wisdom gems. I call them wisdom gems. So whatever you want to put out there for our audience,
Yes.
I will open the floor to you.
Thank you. Um, it's a very interesting way to end the conversation, and I think what I would like to do, I would like to basically highlight of what we spoke about. First and foremost, I always talk about the power of the pause, right? If we just find that power in the pause, and if we expand that, if we only slow down, Dr. Watson says, how much would have changed in healthcare if nurses would walk slowly, right? So if we
I
just
love it.
slow down and we just take a pause and we move into response versus a reaction. And I am not there trying to teach you that. I'm trying to learn that myself as well. There is certain
Yeah.
parts of my life when I'm able to take a pause, and there are certain parts of my life that I'm not able to. And that's a good sign on the back of my head that I need to start taking care of myself. If I jumped into reaction right away, that's a sign to me that I need to engage in a self care activity. So that is number one. Something that I
Awesome.
would definitely highlight. The other thing I would like to highlight is the micro practice. Create a reminder, a touchstone, and a micro practice for yourself. Something that I do that I already mentioned is whenever I hit a red light, I take a deep breath. Whenever I'm washing my hands, I'm paying attention and I'm being mindful. And then I also have an inspirational password for all of my computers, right? So whenever I am typing it in every single day, it reminds me, it grounds me, it reminds me of something that I need to ponder upon, whether it's health, mindfulness, gratitude. And that brings me back to gratitude. Our brain is a beautiful task oriented machine. So give your brain a task to write down three things that you are grateful for every single evening. Then what your brain will be doing is scanning your environment for complete the task. And over time, you creating a habit of constantly scanning your environment for positive things, for things to be grateful for. And all of those things that we just talked about are caritas practices and micro practices, right? So um, if you would ask me for three things that I cannot live without, those would be my three top.
Oh, I love that. That is great. Wow, those were really powerful. And I just want to honor you and thank you for all of the work that you're doing. It's just so amazing to be able to watch these trailblazers just doing the work. So, is if people wanted to get in touch with you, Yelena, is that
Mhm.
possible?
Yes, definitely. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I am active and responsive on LinkedIn. So that would be the best way to connect with me and to learn more about the work that we do.
Well, thank you so much. And it has been a treat. I am so much more grounded just listening to you
Me
and
too.
just receiving all of the virtue that you just poured out. So thank you for being on When the Moment Chooses You. And
Mm.
happy Nurses Week to all of our beautiful nurses out there that's making a difference every day that you show up. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
on the next episode. Thanks,
Thank you.
Elena. Yelena.